Was that your stomach?
That was my stomach. I told you I'm hungry.
It's never that quiet
Ludenberg burger. Anyway. What a great way to start that.
This is the Meaning Business Podcast, your go-to source for business tips, advice, growth, and exit strategies, hosted by Bruce Coudrey and Peter Spinda. Each episode, we bring you real stories, expert insights, and practical advice to help you succeed in today's market. Let's dive in.
Part of what we do here at Meaning Business video podcast series for business owners is to talk about stories and share experiences and the like.
Yep.
So one of the observations that I wanted to share with you, Bruce, and I'm sure you would have seen this yourself, is someone decides that they're going to get into business. They might buy a business, they're starting a business. However that transpires, they get into that business. And usually what tends to happen is the energy's high. They're energetic, enthused, they've got these great plans, and they're going to do this, that, and the other.
They're eating, sleeping, breathing, dreaming about it all the time,
Everything to do with that business.
Consumes their life,
And over time, they actually start achieving things. They start achieving some of the goals, and they start seeing the traction, and they're gaining this momentum as they're moving forward, and they get obsessed with it. And then quite often what tends to happen is they achieve a certain level, and they tell themselves, I've done it. And they pull the throttle back. They push or pull the foot off the accelerator, and they just start to cruise. And quite often, I've seen this time and again, they stay in cruise mode. And next thing you know, days turn into weeks, into months, into years. They look around and they think, oh, geez, I've been left behind. What's going on? Why am I in this situation? I used to be so successful. What happened to the business? And what has tend to happen is they've lost the momentum. And by losing that momentum, they lose their competitive edge, because guess what? Your competition isn't going to slow down just because you've decided to slow down and take a break, or you've decided that you've done well enough.
Exactly. So today is all about momentum.
Absolutely. And we're going to start with watching two videos that highlight this, really very, very pointed videos. Now, for those of you listening to us on the podcast, we'll include the video links down below. And for those of you watching, you're going to see me reach across
and go away from the microphone. Can't hear him now.
Take my word for it. There's a moral to this story.
Yeah, it looked like a coronation for Tonche Pepio. He's getting the crowd. He wants the crowd to cheer.
Look at him. I'm winning.
You can't. And you
Look at that.
see his face, and you don't know
how did you feel?
22, you'll never make that mistake again.
He was 22, right?
Yeah. And that's,
Have you got another one?
I do. I'll show you the other one.
Yeah.
These are some of the lessons that, we learn the hard way sometimes. Odie, Jordan.
So we're watching the guy in purple, right?
Yep.
I know they're already blasting his way around the bed. Here's putting up a good challenge on the outside, but no doubt.
Look at him go. Let him go.
Display of sprinting from the young Briton.
Killing it.
It's absolutely phenomenal. And he's just easing up. What's happened here? That was an absolute disaster.
And he took his foot off the pedal.
This is in the combination.
Too early, and half the field swept past him before the finish line. This is going to be a lesson learned the very, very hard way after what was, for 150 metres, a masterful display of sprinting.
I can honestly say that's never happened to me.
Let me just close it off. So really, really pointed, and it really demonstrates the fact that when we're in that momentum phase, one of the worst things we can do is pull off and expect that we're still going to be the winners tomorrow. We're cruising. And as you saw there, both those runners, they were doing phenomenally well. They would have won had they continued with the momentum.
Yeah.
Absolutely critical. In fact, there's a Netflix series called Sprint. Have you seen that, Bruce?
No.
Oh, my God. It's phenomenal. So anyone listening and watching, you've got to go and see Sprint. Fantastic insight into how to become the fastest runner in the world in the 100 and 200 meter.
Is it about Usain Bolt or?
He's in it, but it's about the new generation coming through. And what's amazing about that show is when you watch these competitors race, guess what they do? They don't just sprint all the way to 100 meters. They will sprint through by another 10, 20, 30 meters and keep sprinting. They don't stop at the line. It's so powerful. And the same thing happens in business. Now, here's the thing with those two runners that we just saw in the video. In order for them to get to that competition, they've already trained hard. They can do it. They've sacrificed. They clearly were in their element.
Yep.
So they'd already done the hard yards, just like a business owner when they buy a business, when they start a business, they're doing the hard yards.
Yep.
And so in order for that runner to be there, they're already achieving. They're successful. So the business owner in that sense, they're doing well. They're selling burgers and croissants and whatever they're doing it very, very well. But here's the but. If you then go, you know what? We've done it. We're third burger. We've already made it. We're doing really well. We put the foot off the accelerator. Man, competition's just nip. And next thing you know, you come fifth.
Yeah.
When you were leading,
you should have
like
won.
that 16-year-old runner. It's insane.
And in this life, people only look at results. They don't look at how well you should have won.
Yep.
You were winning.
Yep.
That doesn't matter.
Yep.
All that matters is you came fifth.
100%. I see this time and time again in the advisory space. I remember a few years ago, worked with a client and went through a really complicated digital transformation. In fact, it was a full organizational redesign. We changed everything from strategy to process, everything. And the outcome was that not long after launching the new platform and going digital, the business went from about 2.4 mil turnover to hitting about 4 million very, very quickly. And we didn't spend more money on marketing. In fact, we cut back the marketing money, but it was just because of the mechanisms and what we built.
Yeah.
Everything was great. The client was happy. And then all of a sudden, I started realizing that the client was forgetting the success and was coming back to us saying, we're not happy with this. We're not happy with that. We've got to do this. We've got to do that. Mm-hmm. So we went through more iterations and more things and more advisory work. And each time we'd hit some goals, we'd tick off and great. We're celebrating success. But then the client kept coming back saying, we're not happy with this. We're not happy with that. And it wasn't. And then I learned very quickly in that engagement that it wasn't about the fact that they weren't happy with us. It was about the fact that they knew that the momentum had to be ridden. And in order to ride that momentum, like we discussed in one of the previous episodes of this Meaning Business podcast and video series, excellence is a habit. So if it forms a habit, once you've achieved a certain level, what are you going to do?
Yep.
Keep pushing the boundaries.
That's right. You can't sit back.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so every time you're iterating and doing better and better.
So have you heard about the Japanese thing called Kaizen?
Yes.
Which sort of means constant, never-ending improvement.
That's right.
Constantly improve. That's excellence. Excellence is not getting to a perfect point and going, that's it, we've made it. It's not getting to the front of the race and saying, I've made it, I can stop running now.
Absolutely.
Constantly going past that finish line and pushing and taking yourself to the next level and the next level and the next level.
It might sound like, management theory, MBA speak this whole Kaizen concept, but I'd recommend everybody go and research this, Kaizen. Now, interestingly, I was about to say, I want everyone to go and Google this, right? But here's the thing. OpenAI, makers of ChatGPT, have just launched Search GPT, and it's only out for certain users at the moment to test it. But here's the thing with it. If Google's sitting back on their laurels and going, we're Google, next thing you know, OpenAI is coming up with this tech that's going to overtake Google.
Wipe them out.
Wipe them out. So, it happens across the board, whether it's a small business, whether you're in big business, whether you're Nokia against the iPhone, whether you're Kodak against the iPhone, or the other iterations coming through. You can't sit back.
I know. Can I give you an example of that? This is something that it's always sat with me. To me, it's incredibly impressive. So this is not the part of the story, but in 1978, 77, I got a job in the first McDonald's store in Wollongong, a fig tree. And people lined up around the block, and I was very lucky to get a job there. So I was a McDonald's brainwashed kid, right? But I've watched McDonald's grow over the years. And there's two amazingly impressive things about McDonald's. First one is, and this is not about momentum, but the first thing is they must make sure their franchisees are successful. Because if their franchisees aren't successful, the whole thing falls apart. So that's a lesson for every franchisor. You must have successful franchisees, otherwise it's not going to work. But the second thing is, and this is momentum, when I started at McDonald's, They had skinny little hamburgers and skinny chips, and they did pretty well because they got it perfect. But they got to a point and it flattened out. They were winning the race. But they didn't back off and say, we're cruising now. What they did was they kept constantly reinventing. So the first thing they did was introduce breakfast, a breakfast menu, which was amazingly successful. I don't know if people remember, but they had scrambled eggs. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I remember.
They had hotcakes. Hotcakes were like
on the plasticky foam styrofoam trays that they had.
And they didn't have cappuccino or coffee making machines. They had like filter coffee.
Yeah.
But McDonald's breakfast was incredibly successful. And then they've sort of leveled out, but they didn't back off. They brought the drive-through in, and the drive-through was incredibly successful. And they've just kept reinventing. And then they added a McCafe, incredibly successful. I don't know what the next iteration is going to be, and it could be the end of it. But if they didn't keep reinventing, if they stack with those skinny little chips and little burgers, no breakfast, no drive-through, no McCafe, that business would probably be gone.
Absolutely.
And this week, Carl's Jr. in Australia has gone in receivership. Yep. And that's what happens if, you don't get to that level, you don't pay attention to the details, and you don't constantly reinvent. But the other thing here's the key to me. So McDonald's is a great example of not only getting momentum, but building on that momentum. And to get momentum, to create momentum, you need to build in the first place.
That's right.
So it's not just the momentum, it's the building and maintaining the momentum. So in essence, if you don't build to get to momentum and then build to get above that, you'll lose it all.
Never achieve it. So what's interesting about what you're explaining is that it's actually very similar to, so this is me going back to my studies and thinking, okay, what was that concept? I think it's called Kotter's change management concept. And it's all got to do with the way that we implement change management within an organization. Now, some people historically has said, okay, the best way to do it is by rip off the Band-Aid and make these big transformative changes.
Yeah.
What Kotter's saying is, no. Let's do it in these step-by-step incremental ways where we might freeze the situation, unpack it, make some change, restart again, okay? And then we're moving forward, then we plateau again, then we, and it's all about the incremental 1%ers. And if you look at, the 100-meter sprint or 200-meter sprint, how much time separates first and last?
Yeah.
Not a lot of time.
Blink of an eye.
Exactly. And so it's not about these big, massive changes. It's all about momentum is all about these tiny incremental things that we do every single day, including keeping an awareness of what's happening in the marketplace. So give, McDonald's as an example. If management weren't aware of what's happening in the marketplace, trends in consumer habits, such as more people turning away from fast food towards healthier food, they wouldn't have come up with the salad options, which some people do purchase at McDonald's.
Yeah. McDonald's, I don't know if they can maintain it. I hope they can, but they've done incredibly well since 77, whatever how many years that is, they've done incredibly well to be the leader. But another example of great incremental improvement is Porsche. So Porsche is the richest motoring brand in the world.
Okay.
And Porsche is owned by Volkswagen Group. In fact, Porsche, the brand, is the most successful part of the Volkswagen Group, which is Audi, Lamborghini, Bentley, Volkswagen, obviously, Skoda, many brands. And Porsche is an incredibly successful thing. And in my view, it's all built on incremental change. So in 1956, I think, they came out with this thing called the 356 Porsche, and it's basically just morphed by incremental change.
Yeah, I remember that original design.
But it hasn't really changed, right? It's like a squash Volkswagen.
Yeah.
It hasn't really changed. It's just got wider. And this year, this last few weeks, have just brought out a new model, which has got a hybrid electric engine in the gearbox. But it's a slight change, and they're just, they're honing it every year. Yeah. So it just keeps getting better and better and better. What a great example.
Absolutely. And that goes back to what we were saying before, that when it comes to momentum, it doesn't have to be big, earth-shattering things. And actually, if I look at what you've done within Benchmark Business Sales over the years, I've seen, I don't even know, maybe a dozen versions or more of the website now. And why is that? It's because it's constantly, we're iterating, we're constantly evolving. The logo has changed over the years from one version to another. But in fact, you can see the evolution of the logo. And Jay, at the moment, our videographer from Verona Media, he's here and he's actually been involved in a lot of that change. And it was always these little, subtle little things that have occurred to get us to where we are. Mm-hmm. And I can pretty much guarantee you that in 5 years' time, if we look at benchmark business sales, benchmark business advisory, it'll look nothing like what it is today, but it will look like what it is today. So it's this morphing as we make incremental change over the years.
Yeah, and you've got to, and that's not without its problems and challenges, right? But you're right. So we started as benchmark, and we still benchmark business sales is the main part of our business. But then we had to develop business valuation, so that's a separate part of it. And upside business sales where people can sell their own business, and benchmark corporate. And they're all came out of need, and it's part of that evolution and continually trying to emulate McDonald's and Porsche.
Exactly. And don't forget add advisory in now as well.
Yes,
so
exactly right.
Continuously growing.
Exactly. So if we don't do those things and we don't push ourselves and stretch and try and get better, we're going backwards.
Absolutely. So
but the other thing is, it would have been, I think, you're right. You know, when you start in business, you eat, sleep, breathe, you dream about that business, and you get to that point where if you're not careful, it becomes routine and mundane. And you're just going in, especially if you're working in your business and not on it. And I think this could happen for a doctor or a lawyer or any professional practitioner as well. They just get up, get into a routine, go to work, Friday night, finish, have the weekend, go back on Monday, and you're in a routine. So you don't have that passion. You don't eat, sleep, breathe your business. You eat, sleep, breathe. Friday night, I'm going somewhere.
You've gone from being an entrepreneur to being a business owner, and it's not discredit to business owners out there, because ultimately it's their choice. People can choose whether they want it, but here's the reality, and whether you like it or not, this is the reality. If you're not entrepreneurial, then you've just got a glorified job as a business owner.
Well, you're going to start sliding back.
You're going to have issues, exactly, because what will end up happening is, as we mature as individuals, you'll start looking at your business and going, "Oh, okay, I'm behind. I'm behind with technology. I'm behind with whatever it might be," and catching up from a behind position is very difficult.
So you lose your mojo. That's what we call it.
Absolutely.
And the only way for someone in that position to regain their mojo, in my opinion, is to get an advisor on board and to create. You need 3 business plans: business plan, marketing plan. Everyone thinks that's most important. It's not. And an exit or succession strategy. And once you get an advisor on board and you have that exit plan in place, once your business is running and you've got that momentum, and if you have an exit strategy in mind and you get an advisor on board to keep you accountable, you've now got mojo. You're like, okay, I've got a reason to come to work every day.
To work towards. So
life has meaning.
It does. 3 weeks ago, so I competed in adventure racing. I suffered some injuries anyway, being sidelined for a few months. 3 weeks ago, I thought, you know what, stuff it. I've had enough. I'm setting myself a new goal. So I literally registered for my next event, which is in May of next year. All of a sudden, guess what? I'm up and about again, and I'm training again, and I've got the momentum, because in however many months till we get to May, I need to be in a certain fitness condition. My body needs to be in a certain point in order to compete. And so I've got a goal. So this thing goes back, and the discussion now goes to the whole concept of planning and why we need to plan. It's not just about having a plan for getting a bank, finance, whatever it might be, but it's also to motivate us so that when we're going through the shitty periods, the periods when we're like, oh, we're doubting the business, we're doubting ourselves, you look at it and go, no, I've got a goal, I've got a plan, I'm working towards it. I'm going to maintain that momentum.
Exactly. And if you think about it, when you made that decision to get back into that, it's a mental shift.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't a physical shift. The physical comes later.
Yeah.
You make that mental, in an instant you decide, you know what, I want to do this again.
Yep.
And away you go.
Yep.
And it's the same with us. As soon as you get that decision about what's next at the end of the tunnel, where I'm going, that mental decision's made, boom, you're away.
Absolutely.
And everything else falls into place. Then you get fit. Then you make the changes.
That's right. It doesn't happen unless you make that mental shift. Now, I'm at the moment doing my PhD, and I've done enough research now on the topic to know for a fact that the business owner's mindset, how you think about your business, how you approach your business, how you treat your business, absolutely 100% without a doubt will dictate what happens in that business, whether you're successful or not. Simple. And if as a business owner you let self-doubt come in, if you lose your mojo, lose the energy, lose the willingness to experiment, to play, to be enthused, what ends up happening is You may think that your team's going to carry you through. No, they won't, because your team looks to you as the leader. If they see the leader's lost their mojo, if they see that the leader they're down and you can feel that energy,
They're just showing up.
the whole business will 100%
Have the
get
same.
sucked down,
Yep.
and you will lose momentum and you will lose your traction.
Yeah.
100% proven. If, however, you just make that little mental shift, and I say if, however, you make a little mental shift, it's not as easy as that for some people. It can be quite challenging.
Well, I
But if
think
you can get that happening,
Well, I think we should do it this way. When you make that mental
When,
shift,
yes,
not if.
not if.
When
I like
you
that.
do that, everything
point.
just happens. So here's another thing, just quickly. I think we should think about momentum as value. So you build momentum, and as you build momentum, you're building value. If you maintain momentum, you're maintaining value. If you lose momentum, you're losing value. If you have a light at the end of the tunnel, and then you have an advisor on board, and you are keeping accountable, and you've got KPIs, and you know where you're going, you're then leading your people, you're building more momentum again, and you're adding more value.
good point. So other ways we could look at that is if you're into real estate, if you've got a planned approach to how you're going to invest your money and acquire or build the property portfolio, if you then purchase a property and then just assume that the property looks after itself, over time the grass grows over and you're not doing the maintenance and there's plumbing issues and you're not tending to it, the whole thing falls apart and it devalues. And if I look at the adventure racing scene, you cannot do a 24-hour, 100-hour adventure race if you're not maintaining your body. And if let's say you go through one event, you're doing really well, and then you think, oh, well, I'm my fitness is good enough, but then you start eating Maccas and, doing bad things to your body. Then you go to race again in 3 or 6 months' time. You wonder why, I can't do this.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing in business. Same sort of concept. So momentum's critical. Now, the thing that I'll say about momentum is it can be really difficult on the business owner. So it can be very taxing from a mental health perspective. And I've seen this on myself where you put too much pressure on yourself to maintain the momentum, and as a result of the pressure builds up. And especially if you feel like, or your perception is that you're not maintaining the momentum, it can be very hard to maintain the positive mindset. And as soon as you lose that positive mindset, guess what happens? Even though the momentum may have been there, the perception, the story you've told yourself about the loss of momentum will actually become reality. Because you've seen that to be the perception, even though that's not the case, and all of a sudden you've turned it into reality. And so you've just self-reinforced, now it is. It's reality. See, I told you.
Yes. You're
But in
saying it
fact,
to yourself.
That wasn't the case. It's like body, what do they call it? Body dysmorphia.
Yes.
Someone looks in the mirror and they're not happy. They're never happy. Even though they're not seeing the fact that, you actually look fantastic. It's just your perception. And you're letting that impact influence what you do next and how you think about yourself.
So when you talk about that, you're talking about a business owner who's in their own head. They're alone. If you have somebody beside you that's helping you
Correct.
to believe in this vision that we have, that there's no turning back, this is the right path, stay on the path, you're going to get there, and this is how it's going to work, then you're going to do it. And you won't have those doubts, and you won't second-guess yourself, and you won't talk yourself out of it, and you won't lose that. You won't have that dysmorphia when you look in the mirror. You go, you know what? I'm confident, I'm humble, I'm confident, and it's going to happen because I've got the plan.
You've nailed that on the head. And in fact, the proof for that is watch Sprint on Netflix. And you watch what happens. The relationship between the athlete and the coach is just incredible. Now, the Jamaican team have got this coach, and I won't tell you about the coach. I want the viewers, listeners, and yourself for us to go and have a look at this coach. Now, if you looked, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to him, but if you looked at him, you go, why are you coaching him or her? But when you listen to what he says and how he says it and the impact he makes up here mentally, then you realize, wow, you are an amazing coach. Like, this guy's just amazing. And it goes back to exactly what you just said. It's about having someone on your team who can guide you, who can correct you, who can steer you, who can keep you positively motivated. And that's why Usain Bolt and all the top athletes, every athlete has got a coach. Why? Because we need the guidance. It's just we're human beings.
So the guys that you think don't need a coach are who are the best in the world.
They have the coach.
They rely heavily on the coach, right?
That's
the
right.
The best rugby league players, the best cricketers, they all have coaches.
Absolutely.
And the amateurs, I don't need a coach.
Oh, what would they know? Oh, they've never made this and that. Well, hang on a second. It's not about whether they've made this or that. It's about how they can influence you and see you, help you see things from a different perspective and bring a fresh approach to the business.
Well, you just said something about the coach. It's what they say because it's mental. And what happens is once we believe and visualize the result, which the coach often gives us that vision and that belief, we're then a great leader of our team because we've got vision and belief. When this is where we're going, everybody, come with me. Everyone buys in and goes ahead. That's what you've got to have. But you can't get that if you don't have that visualization, and that creates the belief and makes it happen.
That's right.
So I don't think any successful business person is on their own. All of us have got to have somebody else to talk to, relate to, correct us, keep us on track.
A good business advisor is your personal psychologist.
Yeah.
As simple as that. And I spend, when I'm working with clients nowadays, I reckon I'd spend most of my initial engagements on psychology, changing behavior, changing mindset, and not just the business owner, but taking the business holistically and changing the entire organization.
Yep.
And unless you do that, any efforts to improve, any efforts to do anything else are futile because the people are not on board. And if the people are not on board, it ain't going to happen.
Yep. So 2 days ago, I was having breakfast with a guy named Morris Wallen, who's a great business broker from Melbourne. And we were talking about how everything is psychological. If that is true, then you need someone to keep your mind focused and visualizing. And it's all about our mind and mindset and the mental situation. So, having a good advisor who understands the psychology and what's going on is so important. It's so beneficial.
Absolutely. So I guess in wrap up of what we've discussed so far today, so we talked about momentum and the power and the impact of momentum. And really, if we go why, and we dig deep into it, it really goes back to you. You, whoever's listening to this, watching this, you, the business owner, it actually goes back to you and your mindset and how you're approaching the business, your perception of the world around you, of the business, and the realities, whether they, match or whether they hit heads. And so sometimes, actually not sometimes, all the time, we need to be willing to open up our minds, take feedback from other people and work with other people and seek advice and seek the guidance of other people in order to move forward and maintain that momentum. So you don't end up being one of those runners there where running, you're celebrating success, and you look around, next thing you realize, shit, I've done nothing. Or you don't become a, Nokia story where you're oh no, what happened?
That's right.
What do you think, Bruce? What's the number one thing that listeners, viewers should take away from this?
Number one is momentum equals value. Number two is there's a guy, Bradley Charles Stubbs, the coach whisperer, who's helped many people in coaching, and he is an incredibly powerful, polarizing person. But he said to a guy, Michael Maguire, after he won the semi-final or getting in the grand final, who they were all celebrating, he said, "You've done nothing yet."
Yep.
And he said to other coaches, he's challenged them, "You've done nothing yet." And really, so just like that guy who's celebrating early, don't celebrate too early. Even winning one premiership's not really enough. Let's get 2, let's get 3. So, once you achieve that goal, you've done nothing yet. Let's go for the next thing. And so it's not just, so momentum is building. Momentum is value, and if we can build momentum, we can build value.
And in fact, what you just said actually resonates very well with the Sun Tzu sort of methodology in terms of the way Sun Tzu and his art of war. And we know that a war isn't just one fight. It's multiple fights, multiple times. It's a series. And so, you might lose battles, but ultimately you can win the war. But the only way to win that war is if you maintain that momentum, if you're willing to accept what the battle is, learn from whatever you learned in that battle and go, right, we're going to do it again. Arm the troops, get everyone enthused and excited, and keep moving forward.
Exactly.
Thank you, Bruce. I think that was...
All right.
Oops, I'm getting all excited here, ripping off the head.
All right. Thanks, Pete. Until next time.
Actually, before we wrap up, I'm going to interject here before we wrap
So I
up.
want to find out more.
Here's our little advert. If you're looking to sell or buy your business, talk to Benchmark Business Sales, benchmarkbusiness.com.au. And of course, from my perspective, if you're looking for the best advisors to work with you and your team, talk to us at benchmarkbusinessadvisory.com.au.
Anywhere across the
Gotta love my radio voice.
That's great. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.